Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 21 Hats podcast. I'm your host, Lauren Feldman. Today, we're doing something a little different. I'm here with Sean Bussey, CEO of Kinesis, which is based in Portland, Oregon, and works with small businesses on marketing, culture, and strategy. And this is the first in a series of episodes Sean and I are calling marketing workshops. Sean, remind me again, why are we doing this?
Yeah, Lauren, thanks so much. This is our 23rd year in business at Kinesis, and our customer pretty much that whole time has been the owner-operated business. And one of the things I've noticed is that marketing is probably on the top 3 list of struggles that business owners have. And when I search the landscape for where's the good advice and who can help these folks, it tends to fall into categories that don't help the business that's doing well and has figured some stuff out, but isn't like a large corporation. The owner-operator who's rolling up her sleeves and getting to work every day, is maybe responsible for sales, maybe responsible for marketing. There's not a lot of great resources out there for that person. And I've picked up a few things over the years, and I've also got some great people in my network that I've learned a lot from. And I think when we bring those stories to the front, I think they can help people.
My experience has been very similar to that. Talking to business owners, there's just so much confusion out there. The idea here is to workshop it, to talk to business owners and entrepreneurs about what they've tried, what's working for them, what's not. And with that in mind, today we're going to be talking to Grayson Hogarth, who is co-founder of Grove Cookie Company. He's figured out that the most effective sales channel for his cookies is, of all places, on LinkedIn, which is kind of intriguing. How'd you get to know Grayson?
Yeah. So if you know me, I'm a big LinkedIn fan. My customer base, we're only in the B2B space. We only work with businesses that are trying to sell to other businesses. I've been doing LinkedIn for a long time, but especially when the pandemic hit, I was like, oh boy, this is going to be even more important than ever. And so I was really investing a lot of time and energy into LinkedIn in the last few years. And I'm pretty sure Grayson popped up in my network at one point or another. But then I heard from him directly. He reached out to me with a solicitation, but he did it in, such a savvy, smart way that I actually paid attention to it. And I cannot tell you, Lauren, how many solicitations I get every day. I mean, dozens daily, between email and LinkedIn. And yet somehow this broke through the noise. And then the more I paid attention to what he was doing, just kind of watching him, I was like, this guy's got some stuff figured out. I mean, there's something going on here.
Anything in particular you're hoping to hear from him?
Yeah, for sure. I get a lot of folks asking me what to do on LinkedIn. What I'm hoping to learn from Grayson is what's his flavor, of LinkedIn? How does he use it?
All right. As usual, this episode is brought to you by our principal sponsor, The Great Game of Business. Let's get started. Welcome, Grayson. Tell us a little bit about how you got into this. How'd you get started in the cookie business?
Well, it wasn't a lifelong dream, but it happened. So we launched. We're 2 years old. We actually just celebrated our second anniversary.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. We launched in January of 2021. And yeah, this whole thing started because obviously in 2020 we had our, the go around, and my wife had been working from home. I had just started a new position and I started working from home, and, kind of time, you had a little extra time on your hands, and really a side hustle was born.
I'm kind of curious, in terms of, there's a lot of business models you could do, right? You could make Rice Krispie treats. You could mow lawns. I mean, there's a lot of things you can do as a side hustle. How did you settle on this idea?
So my wife, in November of 2020, she's not a baker. Let's point that out first and foremost. She doesn't like to cook. Okay. She doesn't like to bake. Her dad asked her to make some cupcakes that he really liked. And Marie nailed it. She did a great job. And everyone was just raving about it. And, I think the encouragement side of baking came out of wow, these are really good, Marie. Thank you so much for making them. So December, end of November rolled around, and she's like, I think I want to try and make cookies. And like I said, no baking experience. This is literally, I think I'm trying to make cookies. So
How
of
does
course,
she get to become an adult and never had made cookies? How does that happen?
it's one of those funny things. And I've always been a cookie snob. I just like soft cookies. That's it. There's no need for frosting. There's no need for extra toppings. It's like, give me a soft cookie. And so she went to Google, and started tinkering with some recipes she found, and landed on this one recipe. And the recipe was an Oreo cookie. What we currently have on our menu is the Oreo cookie. She tweaked some things, put her own little twist on it. And literally I took a bite out of it, after it had cooled from the oven. I'm like, wow, this is like completely soft from the outside to the inside. And like I said, I'm a big cookie snob when it comes to soft cookies. I was like, wow, these are really good. And so she, it's getting that positive reinforcement from me now. And I really think she just like really enjoyed like that side of it. It was like seeing people like happy again with baking. And then the cookies were kind of born from there. Friends and family had them. We took them to family dinners for Christmas. And it was just, it was one of those things that's like, you just keep getting told, wow, these cookies are good. Wow, these cookies are good. And then so my wife was like, I think we should sell these. I was like, sure. What are you thinking? She's like, well, like people can like come pick it up from the house. I'm like, perfect, let's do it. And so I just, we kind of got the LLC, EIN number, bank accounts, website, logo, kind of the whole thing, literally in a weekend. I had it done on Sunday and started on Friday. So that's how it was born.
Sounds like I'm getting a hint here that maybe part of your superpower is execution.
I like to think that. I love to do it. I like to see start to finish, all done, clean my hands of it, and there you go. Here's your product.
I mean, you spun up a business in a weekend, right? It's like that's pretty interesting. So how did you then go from, hey, we're going to sell cookies out of our house to we're a B2B thank you appreciation gift company? Well,
we quickly realized that no one really wants to come to someone's townhouse to pick up cookies.
Was it market research that made that determination?
Well, you just like have these like visions of like, you see it on Instagram, like just whatever. You're like, man, these people are killing it. Like, oh my gosh, it's so easy. You just post a photo and people just come knocking, and it just doesn't work like that. So I've been really blessed to have a strong network that I never wouldn't say worked for, but like they've just been my friends my whole entire life. I've had the same group of friends for since really kindergarten and all through middle school, high school, and forever and ever. So we actually took these cookies to my buddy's house. Him and his dad have a really well-established wealth advisory firm in Lake Oswego, Oregon. And we took the cookies over there just so they could try them. Not like any idea of like, yeah, we could start using these kind appreciation gifts. But they loved them. We actually left the whole box. And then this was on a Sunday. And then on Monday, my buddy Matt emailed me. He's like, you think you could ship these cookies to our office? And I was like, sure. My background's in warehousing and logistics. And so I'm a little confident in my shipping and packaging abilities. And it's so funny when I think about it. So, I packaged them, did the whole logistics side of it, had him shipped there, his next day delivery. He FaceTimed me and he's like, I'm opening the box right now. And he opens the box. The cookies are perfectly in their little plastic sleeve. Yeah. So that's when it was born. That B2B gifting strategy angle.
What month was this? So you start the business in January, and when did you kind of make this pivot or realization?
End of February.
End of
February. So this is what's crazy. So they have a really big book of business, lots of clients, and they are huge on touch points. So I'm actually a client of theirs. And I get, birthday cards. I get, every quarter I'm getting some sort of card like XYZ. And so they actually intertwined us into their birthday send out strategy. So we got, 500, 600 clients just from that, right?
Wow.
Because they're sending them birthdays. And you just see it, right? It's like plain as day if you didn't see it. That, wow, this is the better model from doing this from the house. So that's how that kind of took shape.
So, real typical, a lot of businesses get started on the friends and family model, right? You reach out to friends, see if they'll buy something from you, you get a positive response. And then, a lot of businesses, they struggle at that point because they don't know how to get past how to sell to people in their network.
Yeah.
But you've clearly done that. So take us through that journey. How did you start to get customers that you'd never met before?
Well, after 3 months of working with my buddy's firm, I was at a bachelor party and all my friends were making fun of me as the cookie dealer. And literally, it's the funniest thing ever. And my buddy Matt, same guy, he goes, why don't you call other wealth advisors? We all do the same thing. We send, client relationship gifts, client touch points. And I was just thinking to myself, I'm like, that's a really genius idea. And I'm kind of just been that outgoing, like I really don't mind calling someone out of the blue and doing that. So it just so happened that across the hallway from my buddy's dad's wealth advisory firm is another wealth advisor firm. So, well, this other wealth advisory firm, after like stopping in there 3 times, agreed to like start utilizing us as their client engagement company. And so then we started shipping them. So there we had our second client within a week and a half.
Okay.
Are you still cooking out of your kitchen at this point?
Yes.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're still in our house at this point. Probably made like 3,000 cookies to that point. So then we acquired our second client. I had listened to a podcast, actually, because I have never been on LinkedIn prior to the cookie adventure. I listened to a podcast in July that had a business to business LinkedIn video expert on. And her summary and how I took it was, if you are a B2B company and you're not utilizing LinkedIn, you are missing out on like the biggest opportunity ever. And so I got home that day. I made sure my password and everything worked for my LinkedIn, updated my photo, kind of put a new bio in there, cookies, blah, blah, blah. And from there, I just kind of hit the ground running with LinkedIn. So,
aside from tuning up your profile, and it seems like you went after the like personal brand as opposed to making it about the Grove Cookie Company in the beginning. What are the other things you did in those early days, since you just got on the platform and you didn't have thousands of connections?
Well, Sean, you happen to fall right in my little web of connection requests. Yeah, my real strategy was, a connection request, but with a message, not just like rapid fire connection requests.
Yeah.
I just think, the slightest personalization and like presenting what you're offering and why you're connecting is like, it's like meeting a stranger. It's like, hey, why am I meeting you right now? That's how I took it from that strategy of trying to build my following. And I got really lucky that there's not a lot of like cookie companies on LinkedIn. Mm-hmm. So, you start posting photos of cookies and you talk about cookies and you like angle it from the client appreciation standpoint, like that B2B gifting.
Yeah.
Was the unlock.
I remember you reaching out to me. I don't remember exactly how you positioned it, but I do remember it was customized. And I get so many requests and all of them go in the trash because I know that as soon as I accept the request, they're going to start selling me something. But somehow you broke through that. And, yes,
he was selling cookies, Sean.
Well, that helps. That helps. But it was more about what he said. And maybe if you can remember, I don't know if your script is the same or if you even have a script. I know, do you customize every one that you sent out?
So I do customize it, very minor in the customization. Really, if you have founder, CEO, VP, or any title in there, I'm going to offer you like a free sample box of cookies in that connection request.
Got it. Okay.
So I'm coming in there. My thought is, and I've learned this just over the 2 years, is like I'm basically it's like reciprocating. Like I'm sending you a connection request, but I'm also sending you a free box of cookies if you want it.
Right.
That's a good deal.
Yeah. I think it's a very fair deal. You just had to click a button. So yeah, I actually have the message pulled up. I went into LinkedIn and pulled it up. You want me to read it?
Yeah, yeah.
Hi, Sean. My name is Grayson. My wife and I founded Grove Cookie Company in Beaverton, Oregon. If you enjoy out of this world soft and delicious cookies, we'd love to connect. Let me know if you'd like to try a sample box. And then I just put our website with like our about, like I always kind of forwarded people to our about page because most people want to see that, you know?
Right.
And then you responded with the funniest thing.
I don't remember.
Yeah, you're like, you want me to read it?
What did he say? Yes, please.
John goes, hey, Grayson, great intro. I get a ton of connection requests and ignore 90% of them because they aren't relevant or it's someone looking to sell me something. But free cookies? Genius. And you go, your timing is funny too. I was just telling someone that the untapped opportunity is for consumer brands to use LinkedIn for marketing. Anyway, nice to meet you, Sean. And from there, like you gave me that positive reinforcement, like, oh, this is like smart.
That worked. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
right. And
this was October of 2021.
And I don't know if either of you read the book Influence by Robert Cialdini. It's the psychology of persuasion.
I have not.
It's kind of a must read if you care about marketing.
Mm-hmm.
And so essentially Grayson said the word reciprocity. And that's a big concept in that book. It's the idea that you, by giving something to somebody without a, expectation of a return, you're setting up a situation where the person actually will then want to help you. And that's, the reciprocity idea. You see it when you go into Costco and they give you free food. Anytime somebody gives you something for free, they're generally leveraging that idea of reciprocity that you will feel some level of obligation to help that person. And I think that's a really, really savvy way to do it. I
literally think about that all the time. Like I call myself Costco 2.0 on cold calls because they're like, you're going to send us free samples. And I think it's the funniest thing, but no one's really laughed at it. But that's exactly how I modeled that whole thought process of like sending samples. So one of the crazier things that we've just eclipsed in 2 years, mind you, is we've shipped or delivered 500 sample boxes of cookies in 2 years. So you talk about like trying to accelerate, and I'm talking about that organic side of things. That's how we've been able to accelerate it.
Have you tracked, are you like of the 500, our conversion rate to a actual customer is, 10%, 5%, 50%?
I don't have an accurate data because I changed the way I was tracking it from using HubSpot to then moving it to Shopify. But I would say it's about 15%. It's actually, the beauty of what we're trying to do is create that lifetime value client who is going to utilize us throughout the year and the next year and the year after that, right? Right.
I don't know what it costs you to send out a box, but let's say it's $10, let's just say round numbers 10%. So now you've got 50, you've basically secured 50 customers for $5,000.
Right.
And then you can start to do the analysis on, how frequently do those customers buy from you? What's the value of them? And it's not the year one value, right? It's year 2, 3, 4, all compounded together.
Correct.
I'm guessing you're still too early days to like have all that information at your fingertips because it's moving so fast.
Yes. So like I could really benefit from some data cleanup.
Mm-hmm.
We do a good job. Obviously we have Shopify do a fantastic job of like breaking down numbers for me. Like some of the cool back end things of Shopify is like they have like cohorts. So if someone buys in July, it will track them for the next 6 months to like see what their percentage of buying again is.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So it's so cool. But yeah, so like we've been hovering like at 14% and that's through a 6-month period, right?
14% of what? Can you explain what that means?
A 14% returning customer rate.
Okay. So they buy from you once, 14% of them will return to you.
Correct. And that's over 6 months, right? So it's like
just 6 months, right?
Yeah. So it's like it jumps 14, it goes down, goes up, goes down, goes up. Yeah. It's like, it's a really cool, I got to do a LinkedIn post on it because I think it's just the most fascinating thing ever. It's like all this data, like Shopify is the best. So if you're trying to start a business that's selling something online, Shopify, number one.
What's really cool too is you're taking an industry, B2B sales, and you're applying the tools of B2C sales to that industry. And now you're starting to get information that informs your decision making around marketing and sales efforts.
Correct.
Grayson, do you know what percentage of your sales are B2B versus B2C?
We just opened up local delivery and pickup here from our shop in Tigard, Oregon. So we've seen a little uptick in like DoorDash delivery, but over 90% is B2B client gifting.
And what do you charge for a box of cookies?
With shipping, it's for 6 cookies is $25. But that includes, and this is like our big selling point, is the customized note card with the logo. So like Sean saw that with like the Kinesis logo.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the value add that separates us from any one cookie company on the market right now.
Yeah, what's the competitive landscape like, Grayson? How do you think about it?
I really don't pay too much attention to it because I'm trying to, we're still like, I don't have enough time to like look up, I do my best to just kind of like, I hear the feedback, right? Like I'm really big on just following up. So I just hear what our customers are saying. And, it's always the same thing. Cookies are soft and we absolutely love the note, right? Mm-hmm. So that's the best part about sending samples is like we get this unfiltered feedback, especially from, B2B clients. From a competitive landscape, there's just no one that's putting notes outside of a packing slip, if you're familiar with that, right? Like you ever received a gift online, it's on a white packing slip, size 4 font. I think a few other cookie companies put it in bold now, but it's like, there's just nothing to it, right? Whereas our notes right on top of the cookie, you see it right when you get it. There's no questions about who sent me this gift, which is, the worst part about gifting is not knowing if like the client even figured out who sent it to them.
One of the things you just pointed out, which I think is worth highlighting, and thought about it, but I was thinking about your 500 sample cookies as, $5,000 for new customers, but it's actually, you could take that cost and say it's actually market research too. So you're sort of figuring out what people respond to in that space.
That is a fantastic point.
You've built a model in which you get a 2-for-1. You're acquiring customers, which is the job of marketing, and you're also getting market research, which is also the job of marketing, but they're usually thought of as 2 different, line items and costs and activities.
Grayson, did you hit on the idea of giving out free samples this way right from the beginning? I mean, that's kind of a time-tested strategy, but it usually happens in a supermarket or a Costco or something. You have an interesting twist on it. Was that always the idea, or how did you come up with that?
Well, it really came about my insecurity of cold calling because I had never done it before. And my thought was like, okay, if I can like get out in like the first, 2 minutes or so that, we love sending free samples. If this is like an interesting opportunity for you, that's how it was all born. And plus, because we're so heavily involved with like the wealth advisor community, I think they're going to be more hesitant to send their clients gifts without trying them anyways.
I find it really interesting because, especially during the early days of the pandemic, there were a lot of brands that talked about how they were stymied because their marketing strategy was to give away free samples and, in a store setting. And that venue was just shut down. That wasn't an option anymore. And it never would have occurred to me to just reach out to people on LinkedIn and do it that way instead.
Yeah. So it just happened that way, and we haven't stopped doing it. And it just, like Sean kind of alluded to, it provides us instantaneous feedback of how we're doing, right? So like I did a follow-up call from samples we sent out last week, and 2 wealth advisor firms were like, we were blown away. Like packaging was great. We absolutely love the note with our logo on it, because I don't tell people like the sample I'm sending will have their logo on it. I just tell them we're going to send a sample box. And so, yeah, it's just instantaneous feedback that we really enjoy.
And you're delighting the customer with something they don't expect, which is always a winner in terms of, delight and sticking with you and wanting to learn more. That's a great strategy.
You've kind of given us a snapshot of where you are now. Where would you like to be? What do you imagine this looking like in 2 years, say, and how are you going to get there?
That's a fantastic question. So 2 years is pretty quick, but it took us 2 years to get out of the house and into our own shop. So things happen extremely fast. But ideally, we have this nationwide presence, right? And really with that comes just bigger space, more awareness. And that's where I kind of talked about like organic versus paid marketing, is that more awareness of what we offer as a client gifting experience. So in 2 years, ideally, it would be regionally, we're like known, and then nationally is making that presence more felt. So that's our 2-year goal. And that's the beauty of where we're at with our setup right now, is really it's not a matter of like creating more shops or creating more, that capital investment just isn't necessary. Really, it's just bigger equipment.
Mm. So you think you can scale with bigger equipment versus adding a lot of more people? Correct.
Yes. Yeah. So, there's the automation machinery side of things, right? So everything is hand scooped right now, but there's dough dividers that kind of are very, very cool. I've seen videos of them. And so now you 10X with 2 people, and it's all from just one machine, right? So, it's just those types of things. You get a bigger mixer, so now your yield's more. And that's how scaling with e-commerce is so lucrative and so appealing versus like trying to potentially franchise, getting more concepts in place. And plus we're bootstrapped. So, you have those parameters, right, of a capital, right? So yeah, that's really our 2-year vision.
Well, take us through your thinking on the marketing that's going to expand the awareness of what you do regionally and nationally. It's all LinkedIn. You're not messing with other platforms.
We have Instagram. We post plenty there, but just because of our like business to business client gifting approach,
right?
Your just market is like right there, right? So yeah, with the paid side of things, I've been hearing a lot. It's like, if you can't figure out organic, your paid ain't going to work either. So what's fun is I've kind of figured out, not to get too far ahead of my skis, but I've figured out kind of that cadence for organic. So what you can do on top of the positive organic outreach you're doing, you can boost, right? You can start boosting posts, and then you can go into ad creative, but you can like boost posts and like target those to everyone with founder in their name, or how that works with like this digital advertising. So that's like really trying to figure out how to maximize that.
Can you walk us through the boosting process a little bit? I mean, how much money are you spending and how do you target it?
Well, that's the hardest part that I don't know, because I can,
$0 right now.
$0 right now. Exactly.
You haven't played with it at all. You haven't boosted it all yet.
Not LinkedIn, LinkedIn at all. So, Meta, Facebook, Instagram is very simple. I imagine LinkedIn's pretty simple. It's just a matter of like coming up with a real game plan with like Facebook, Meta. I have a game plan, don't get me wrong, but it's that marketing presence, paid versus organic, that I'm figuring out our next steps in.
You seem like an incredibly adept DIY guy. Do you anticipate continuing to DIY that kind of work? Do you say, well, I'm really good at the organic stuff. Maybe I bring in somebody to help me on the paid stuff. Or do you just feel like I got to figure it out myself?
We talked a little bit about budget and, some firms, agencies charge quite a bit. So it's a matter of kind of keeping those costs in line. And that's where the DIY, right? Like keeps those costs very low, minus my time. I've definitely fielded phone calls on how those all work, but they all seem to be kind of the same to me, which it all revolves around SEO, kind of all this stuff. So I've had reports drawn up, because people are trying to pitch me to work with them, but
right.
I love seeing the data they provide me because they show me my SEO is really good. And I'm like, fantastic. Thank you so much. Because I don't know how to search that. I can type in Google like Grove Cookie Company and it'll pop up.
So you are now the recipient of free things, right? Folks are coming to you and saying, we've done an analysis on your social media and here's a report we've generated and we think we could help you improve it. So they're giving you something for free. It's a free box of cookies, but you're not buying. You're like, nope. And tell us a little bit more about why you think that is. Do you think that's where you're at in your business's growth? Like, we just don't have a ton of free money sitting around, so I know I can't afford this. Do you think it's a mindset? Like, I really want to understand this myself before I hire somebody to do it, and I may never hire anybody to do it. Where's your brain on that one?
Well, I think the mindset portion of it is huge. It's almost like you could classify it as a scarcity mindset, but it's also like you have your own money riding on the line. So you're going to be a little more hesitant, especially this being like our first journey in entrepreneurship. So there's that. And then obviously not having, $3,000 a month to hand off to someone. Mm-hmm. But also I'm huge on the fulfillment side of things. And that is my biggest fear, is like not being able to like fulfill our product to the standards we are known for. Mm-hmm. So, my thought is like, okay, now you start putting, some gasoline on the fire, and a lot of wishful thinking in a sense. How do I get that on the back end with like our systems and processes? So yeah, so you have quite a few things kind of affecting my decision on working with, an outside agency. And those are just things I'm kind of working on. I haven't really talked about this yet, but we've had a business strategist working with us since November of 2021. So that's been huge, right? Like I talked about systems and processes. Before November 2021, I didn't know what like a system and process like really meant outside of like using those at like my corporate job. So she's been a blessing.
Were you looking for a strategist, or did you just happen to connect with her? How did that happen?
It's all for the love of cookies. We actually first met her back in 2021. We were doing some events, almost like a farmer's market, but this was called Cars and Coffee here in the Portland metro area, where all the people with the cool cars come up and, they're open the hoods and, there's quite hundreds of people there. And we just had networked our way into being like a vendor there. And that's how we actually met our coach, because she came and had one of our cookies and she's like, wow, these are really good. And anyways, she kind of just introduced herself. And then we ran into her again at the Porsche dealership. So by chance, I got invited to be a vendor at the Porsche dealership here in our area. And she happens to have a Porsche. And anyways, we reconnected and I was like, we're actually really looking for like a business like strategist of sort to kind of like guide us in the right direction, because things were picking up. And so she had me read eMyth and then reach out to her.
So on one area, you're like, I want to DIY, I want to figure things out, I don't want to pay for it. And then in another area, you're like, I'm so stoked I hired this person and it's really helped us out. What do you think the difference is? After reading like eMyth and then more podcasts, I've been a big podcast junkie, if you will, from the entrepreneur mindset space. I mean, you can't grow, you can't scale without systems and processes. So really that was my whole side of like, because my whole personality is driven on just doing what I say I'm going to do. Is this a learned habit, or is this something like ever since you were a kid, you're just like, I say what I'm going to do, I do it. I see you've got a military background. The people I know from the military, they're very much about that. I think, just growing up, I was just always around friends, families, and just like they asked me to do something or whatever, like I would just do it, make sure it's done. That kind of moved its way just growing up. And then it obviously transitioned really well into the military, because it's like, you just get patted on the back when you just go follow orders. That is like fuel to my fire. And just with my corporate job, like a lot of people just don't seem to have that kind of connectivity with like completing something someone asks you to do. Just through my corporate experience as well, it's just kind of reinforced, like you say you're going to do something, you need to do it 100%.
Do you have a goal for when you want to walk away from that corporate job?
Yeah. I'd really like to do it at the end of this year. That's the goal I have. Wrote it down. So that's really how we're kind of positioned in a way. So my wife still has her corporate job.
You guys are busy.
Yeah. I mean, it's no joke. I mean, it's a lot, but it's part of the journey, and it's one we signed up for.
I'm wondering, Lauren, if this is maybe a good point to, kind of wrap things up.
Go for it.
Really great marketing is often about the idea of, beating a drum, being consistent, doing something, figuring it out. I think of it as like a good habit. So I'd be curious if you could share with our listeners what you think is your good habit. What's your winning habit that's allowed you to be successful and to scale and maybe even, leave your corporate gig and get into this thing full time?
It would be really difficult for me to say LinkedIn has not been a blessing. So that's allowed that whole like putting yourself out there, networking, marketing in itself as like really easy from my point of view. And with that is like LinkedIn, you've ever heard the term of like the lurkers, like 95% of LinkedIn is lurkers. The other 5% creates content. So I just like have found this like sweet spot where I really enjoy the content making of LinkedIn. So I am committed to like doing that twice a week at minimum. And that's where that habit, like you just alluded to, kind of has helped me stay top of mind, which is what marketing really is all about, in my opinion, is especially when you're like a consumable that we are. And that's been really like my driving point with this whole entire endeavor is like, stay consistent, enjoy it, don't make it a job, and be open to meeting people.
Grayson, you don't have to answer this question if you don't want to, but if the listeners of this podcast would like a free box of cookies, what should they do?
Yeah, well, find me on LinkedIn. Let's chat. Yeah, no. Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn, Grayson Hogard, Hogard. I'm like the only one on LinkedIn with that name, so pretty proud of it.
All right.
But yeah, like, we love just sending cookies because really, I mean, enhancing relationships one cookie at a time is really that's our motto. That's what we really prioritize in our whole entire business. So we love connecting with people, and we don't ever go, yeah, I don't think you'd be a right fit. So really, if anyone asks, I do it.
Thanks, Grayson.
Thank you, Lauren and Sean. I really, really appreciate it. And like I said, really honored to be on the podcast.
All right, Sean. So now that Grayson's gone and it's just the two of us, what do you think?
Oh, man, I couldn't have had a more invigorating, fun, first interview. What I loved about Grayson is, he's in the relatively early days of his business, but in a 2-year time period, he's probably done 5 years worth of work. I mean, this guy,
while keeping a corporate job. I mean, this is still a side hustle for him.
Right. And his wife, who's also working in the business. They're both doing this as a side hustle. And, my prediction, they're going to outgrow that real fast. So, I'd say lesson number one from today's interview is, the execution, speed, figuring out the right channel and the right message is just unbeatable. I mean, he's just really impressive in that regard. What did you think, Lauren?
I was just amazed at how quickly they figured out who they are and what they're doing. They're selling cookies, and they picked an untraditional route to do it. And maybe there was some luck involved. There always is. He was fortunate enough to have a friend in a wealth advisory business, and that led to him figuring out that client gifting would be an opportunity. But it's only luck if you seize the day. And boy, did they seize the day. They realized that this was the way they wanted to go. And then, as if that wasn't enough, they figured out that they could sell the cookies on LinkedIn. And, to do that so quickly is just really impressive to me.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I was thinking about how, Grayson is doing something that I see very sophisticated and larger businesses really lose sight of, which is he knows his customer. And he's learned more and more and more about that customer with every step. And as he builds more and more knowledge, he adjusts the business and makes it more attuned to what that customer needs. So he's just kind of constantly tuning the machine. That also ties into to me to another piece that we talked about a bit in there, which is part of his strategy of giving away free cookies. It's such a winner in terms of customer acquisition. You're gonna get some business by doing that. But it's also such a win in terms of insights and learning from those customers and potential customers. Super smart.
Is there anything that concerns you? Do you see any potential pitfalls ahead for him?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say there's the realm of, I always ask the question, like, how easy is it to replicate this business to where there might become competition? I think he's okay there for a while. I often find, like, it's one thing to say we're going to copy a business. It's a whole other thing to be good at execution on the copying. And I think that's his superpower, is he's able to move so fast. It's going to be hard for people to catch him. I think from a persona perspective, the piece of advice I might give Grayson if he were interested would be to just keep an eye on that DIY propensity, that desire to kind of do a little bit of everything. He's the guy who figured out, hey, we're going to plug in Shopify, which is a B2C kind of consumer-centric, platform, and we're going to use it in a B2B environment. I mean, it's like genius, and he's looking at the analytics and he's getting to know what's working and what's not. I think that's a really awesome skill. And I've also seen that the shadow side of it is, knowing when to bring in outside help. I am optimistic, though. When he did talk about bringing in a consultant, he brought in a business consultant. Already, yeah. And that to me tells me, I think this guy's on the right path.
All right. My thanks to Grayson Hogard of Grow Cookie Company and to Sean Bussey of Kinesis. And of course to our sponsor, The Great Game of Business, which helps businesses implement open book management and employee ownership. You can learn more at greatgame.com. Wait, don't leave yet. If you have a question or a comment that you'd like the 21 Hats owners to address, send it to me by replying to your morning report or by email at lauren@21hats.com. That's LOREN @21hats.com. Do it now before you forget. And don't be afraid to tell Jay what you really think. He can take it. And if you got something out of this conversation, help us reach more business owners. Tell a friend. Subscribe and review us wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on Twitter. Subscribe to the Morning Report at 21hats.com. This episode was produced by Jess Thuberon, founder of Blank Word Productions. Okay, now you can leave. Thanks for listening, everyone.